November. Did you have anything in addition to go through this with us, Dean? I think you outlined it pretty well already.
Yeah, I've outlined it, but if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Nope.
One thing, can you explain the 90-day thing to me? I'm a little cloudy on that one.
Yes, the previous policy, and Dean Miller, City Council staff, the previous policy and procedures that were approved in June, the thought behind the 90-day, some people were calling it embargoes last week, but basically a producer would not be able to do anything with their program if they used the studio or if they used or editing or anything. They wouldn't be able to use that program, for instance, like a YouTube channel or anything like that. Basically come and use it, but just go out to the YouTube channel and try to sell your content, or have people subscribe for a fee to see your content, but you're using the taxpayer funded. So the original thought was 90 days after it's shown on the channel, then you can do anything you want with your material. And of course, as you heard last month, that created some barriers for some producers to wait that long, because they do have a YouTube channel or a blog that they put their shows out on. And if you think about it, there's a lot of people who have DirecTV, there's a lot of people who don't have cable, so there's a lot of people who get their content from the internet, and I think that's growing every year. So really, after thinking about it, once the program is shown on CTAC, really we've made our hay, right? With the producer and the channel. We've shown it on channel 22. It's showing. So at that point, you can go ahead and do whatever you want with your show, as long as you're not selling or having people subscribe to your content for a fee. You'll be able to, once it's showing, you'll be able to do anything you want with it. Put on your blog and do whatever.
Okay, thank you, Dean.
Dean, I have a question for you as well, though. But if we find that people are using it and profiting, are they dropped from using our facilities, or do we have policy in place? I didn't see that.
Yeah, we
take care of the problem.
Dean Miller, City Council staff. We do have policies in there. Obviously, if you break some of the rules, you can lose your capacity to even come to the studio anymore. So there would be rules in there. Are we going to go out and look on the web for people selling their stuff? There won't be any active enforcement. But if we come across someone is coming to the studio, they're immediately taking their material and putting it out there and selling it. I mean, as soon as we find out, that's in violation of the policy and procedures, and they can lose all of their rights to the studio after that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any more discussion we need to have amongst ourselves? We did have the public hearing last month, so at this point we're not going to have any more public comments. We've heard from most of you already. Is there any discussion among ourselves before we act on this?
I entered this document into the public record.
No, Dr. Mendenhall, why don't you come up for the record and name and address, and I think you have a short statement, but you have 5 minutes if you get.
Oh, thank you. Francis Mendenhall, 3715 Hamilton. This badge that we're wearing says don't gamble with KPAO. What is being proposed as far as limiting producers to 1/2 hour per producer per week, as well as not allowing series from Monday through Friday.
Dr. Mendenhall, I probably erred in letting you come up, because we did have the public hearing last month, and it looks like we're going to be going over some of the new things. I think the board would be interested in hearing if there was any new information. We're certainly...
And I would like to make sure that every member of the board has got one.
We got it. I think we all got it. Thank you.
I don't think I got one, actually. Thank you.
So again, we've already had the public hearing on this. We're ready to take action on the policy and procedures changes as outlined by Dean. Are there any more discussion among the board itself?
I know that from my perspective, if these policies and procedures don't pan out, I will introduce new motions and measures to change a lot of these things that we've heard a lot of public feedback from. I think in my own universe that as I've reflected on some of these things, we might have been a little too hasty to get some things set in stone before we actually launch. And I know a lot of things are going to change once we get our systems in place. And with that in mind, I want to see if this will work before I'll buy into it lock, stock, and barrel.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Any other comments about the proposed changes on policies and procedures?
John?
Should I make that a motion? How do I phrase that? In retrospect, I think some of the issues were not thoroughly thought through and might have been hastily done with foresight that wasn't quite clear, so that if in the next 90 to 120 days things don't pan out, I will make a motion at that time to revisit our policies and procedures and see where we are at that time as a mile marker.
But that's not a motion though right now.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure I understand what.
Well, unless you want to, as part of that statement, Charlie, unless you want to move that the policy and procedure changes be adopted. If you don't want to do that, maybe somebody else will.
I'll make the motion.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that we adopt the procedures as revised most recently and presented by Dean Miller, the City Council.
Second. It's been moved by Mr. Theopolis, seconded by Mr. Weirman, that the policies and procedure changes as presented be adopted. Is there any more discussion?
And I would just say with reservation, with the right to revisit in 90 or 120 days.
I assume that we always have the right to revisit, but my motion would be to adopt the policies and procedures, not with reservation, but adopt the policies and procedures. And then if we decide at some point to come back and look at something that needs, tweaking, whatever, I think that's, Tom, assuming that's well within our rights to do that at any point at any future meeting.
Drew, I think your motion is very clear.
Yeah, my motion
Charlie's
is
just
adopt.
expressing what he might feel.
Sure, and I appreciate that, Charlie.
Yeah,
I just
sure.
was making sure that we didn't reflect in the minutes that we were adopting a motion with reservation or whatever.
No, and that's
might be.
just me,
Okay.
from my perspective and my point of view and reviewing a lot of material recently.
Is there any other discussion about these changes to policies and procedures? Hearing none, again, it's been moved by Mr. Theopolis, seconded by Mr. Wireman, that the policy and procedure changes as presented be approved. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion carries. Thank you. Again, sticking with new business, 6G is scheduling a studio open house, which is probably a carryover from some optimistic talks earlier. Do we still want to talk about this at this point, Dean or Jim, or are we going to wait and
I would just lay it over Dean Miller, City Council staff.
May I make a suggestion here?
Yes, Mary, please.
I think we need to start putting things on the books to get things moving. And even though we may not have those great cameras ready to go, the buzz is out there. I've talked to a number of people who want to get in there and see what it looks like so they can start thinking about programming. And, police department is interested. We've talked to people in the health department, they're interested. But they've got to see the big picture. So I think the sooner we get people in, the sooner we get them thinking about programs, and we can paint the picture if we have to, but I think we need to start putting things on the books.
Thank you.
President?
Yes,
Hi,
yes,
Mr.
Rudy.
Berry.
Yes.
Is it possible that we can have a pre-open house?
Do whatever we want, sure.
Maybe a walkthrough tour. A walkthrough tour for 2 hours open, so anybody want to come look at it. It's not open house, pre-open house.
I don't see why not, but I'm not the one holding the door open. I'd like Jim
Yeah,
Wilson to
well,
come up just for a moment and indicate, maybe look at your calendar and see if there's a day that we could just go ahead and do this.
Sure. Let's make a decision that once the equipment, now that we find, we've got the equipment on the way, I have no problem. It's just making sure we schedule it accordingly, and there's indications. I mean, if you want to start doing tours with no equipment, that's something we can start doing now.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Is there, my only concern is your schedule and what you have to be doing to make sure that the studio gets up and running. I'd rather...
Most of, if it can be done during the evening, that works better.
Whatever, I think that probably works better for people because then they're not at their office hours, but I just want to make sure that your sole focus is on making sure that we are either out soliciting some of the things that we've talked about and getting the studio up and running, and not have you acting as a,
Right, I think it's a good idea
host.
because what happens actually, when people start seeing what's possible, they become more anxious and more eager to do what they need to do. Like I said, for me, it works better in the evenings because I'm doing things already in the evenings there. So I think that's natural. So,
Jim, if I could just offer a suggestion, we have to get a newsletter out based on the vote today, just to let everyone know about the policy and procedures. We've got to get them out on our website. So perhaps in that newsletter, we could do Wednesday nights. We're already supposed to be open 3 to 9. Maybe we can offer, I don't know, 6 to 8.
and have handouts of the policies as well as newsletters.
Like maybe during the month of January, every Wednesday, 6 to 8, you can come in and on a guided tour. But I'll work out the exact details with you guys.
Is that what you were thinking more?
I would say, when I went in there, I quite frankly, without any equipment in there, was extremely impressed with what's going on and the possibilities. And I think if other people see the same thing, and they can just do a little walkthrough, it took, what, 10, 15 minutes of my time? I think it will open some eyes here. So if that works for you, I'd like to see that happen.
I think not only will it open some eyes, but it'll help squash some of the skeptics that are, and the rumors and innuendos that are floating around that we really don't know what's going on, and maybe you can come in and take a look. Your mind will be changed.
If I can interrupt, I want to point out that the City Council foresaw that you might want to meet there occasionally, and the authorizing ordinance does allow you to meet at least every other month out of the studio if you wish.
Well, you know what, I'm glad you brought that up, Tom, and I'm thinking, we have so much on our plates, and so much that we need to accomplish. Why don't we start having bi-monthly meetings instead of just one, at least on a temporary basis until we get the wrinkles out of this thing. We'll start meeting twice, maybe we can start meeting at the facility. And I might even propose a motion here that we do that. Let's adopt a 2 monthly meeting, or meeting bi-monthly meeting. One to be held at the studio.
Public meeting?
Yes.
It would be just like this, except it'd be at your place, yeah.
No, not my place.
It's our place, it's the city's place, it's everyone in this room's place. So I think we should adopt that, and I'll make the motion if it's necessary. I move that we do have bi-monthly meetings, one to be held on-site at the studio.
I second it. We've got a lot to do.
It's 2 months, we're doing 1 a month now, let's bump to 2. But that have one-
Ending time?
Till March, maybe.
Oh, do we want to put a timeline on it?
I would take the first time, I would take.
I don't know.
First two.
Well, we can, I think we ought to let it go as it is, Ruby. Let's get the.
Maybe we can do every other month.
We find out we don't need 2 meetings per month, then we'll do.
I know,
introduce
based
another-
on my schedule, will be a real challenge for me to make 2 meetings a month.
Well, we could do that until we get the knots out. I mean, we got a lot on our table. We got things we need to talk about, a lot of things we need to talk about. Marketing, development, there's a whole lot of things we need to get going. So,
Can I interject for a second?
Sure.
I'm looking at your bylaws, and your bylaws provide that you will have regular monthly meetings, and then you can have special meetings as called by the board. So if you want to have more than 1 meeting per month, you're going to have to call at least one of those a special meeting.
okay. So can we schedule special meetings on a monthly basis?
Yeah, I misunderstood your original motion, Buck. I thought you were thinking we'd do, January, we'd meet at 4725F.
Right. That's what I
February,
was
we'd be
thinking.
here. March, we'd be here with that kind of a pattern.
Well, I think 2 times a month would be instead of once a month, until we get some of these things taken care of. There's a lot of ground to cover here. And I think we can get it done quicker if we start meeting more often, and at least 1 more time a month, I would think.
Tom, is there, in the bylaws, there's the provision for committees, are there not?
Yeah.
Would it be possible to put together a committee or committees that could meet on an interim basis in between our monthly meetings that could then serve some of the purposes that Buck has just raised, try and address a variety of issues, and so that we're moving some of these items forward quicker than just having a monthly meeting, and then that would alleviate having to have all of us attend a monthly or bi-monthly meeting?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Would that, if we did something like that, would that be?
As long as we get something done, I'm all for it. Let's go, let's roll, because we got things to do here. This is a new baby, and we all have big aspirations. We have dreams of how we want to make this right. And I think the passion is there with everyone here, or at least I hope so. And the more we get together and solve some of these things that are going to be coming up, the sooner we'll get it taken care of.
So I have a thought, because I know you want to move forward, but I don't know what committees and what topics we need covered. So is it possible, Tom, to create a committee for creating committees and sort of come up with the topics, that committee can come up with the topics that they think need to be served by special committee, so that then we can get together in January and decide what groups and who of the board is willing to take on certain tasks on those committees? I mean, my fear is that if we say, take Buck's request now and just say move forward, I'm not sure how in the next period of time here of this meeting we'll figure out what it is we need to address first and who's going to serve on that committee. So could we create a committee that's tasked with figuring out bullets of what needs to be done, and then we can figure out how we're going to service those?
Yes, you can do that.
Thoughts?
Well, yeah, my thought is we could, because of the holidays, we could say we'll meet at 4725F in January, and in the meantime, either by email or communication, I think all of us have ideas on what committees might make sense, get everyone's input, and then at that January meeting form those committees. And a reminder, of course, because the open meetings law, any committee would have to be 3 people or less.
And our communications by email, are those, if we all are exchanging emails, thinking of ideas for committees and tasks, et cetera, is that part of the subject of public meetings law? Is that us meeting in cyberspace? I mean, how does that work?
Well, it doesn't work very well.
Okay, great.
And there's a fine line there. Emails which include all of you and which include a discussion among you, that would be a meeting under the public meetings law and would probably be in violation. Emails that are individual, no different than a phone call, those are fine. Emails that include less than a majority, 3 or less, those are fine. It's just when you get 4 or more together in a discussion, then you have a meeting. And if it's done electronically by email, it's still a meeting. So what often happens is an identical email can go out to 3, and 1, as long as there's no mixing together, because then there's no, you can chuckle at that, but nonetheless, then you don't have a discussion among the majority. And that's what the public meetings law approaches. if there was a committee of 3 or less, certainly they could exchange emails and just have discussion in that email. If there was a committee larger than that, then it would have to be segregated emails.
Well, let's do this, John. The meeting in January we'll have at the studio. But I want everyone, if you're so inclined, to think about what we need to accomplish, what committees might be formed, make that, like marketing, development. These are all things that are very important to keep us moving forward. And we'll discuss it again in January.
And we can add it as an agenda item, Buck.
Okay.
Yeah, can
For
you?
January's. And how about we also do this? You can send me your ideas on top categories. I'll line them all up, and that's what will go on the agenda. And you guys can determine, hey, let's put these 3 together and call them the studio committee. And they're going to tackle these 3 issues or 5 issues or 1 issue or whatever.
Great.
Can you also send us a list? And I think you've done, there was a bullet point thing at one point, but it'd be helpful again when thinking of top tasks that need to be done, if you could send a list of what needs to be done.
I can resend that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and Danny, I think you have to leave, so thanks for your attendance, and we don't talk to you. Have a good holiday, and we'll see you in January. See you in January 4725F. So is everyone okay with that idea then? Getting ideas to Dean and then discussing them. They'll be on the agenda at the January meeting. Any other thoughts on that? Okay.
So there was a motion which was seconded, but I don't know if we need to vote on it or if we need to retract it, because the motion was actually to meet.
Yeah, and I misunderstood it because I think Buck was thinking we'd meet.
Could I suggest
twice a month.
that motion should be held until you have item 10, the setting of next meeting date? And then you can both set the date and the location.
But I think we also want to withdraw the motion, which was to meet twice a month as opposed to.
Yeah, Buck, could you just withdraw your motion at this point, if you don't mind?
I do withdraw my motion, and we'll talk about it again in January.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well said. Thank you.
Okay, is there any new business to come before us today? I think we've covered everything on the new business side here. Agenda item 7 is appeals, and this was primarily set up for people wanting to, programmers wanting to bump other program times. Is there anyone here who has an appeal of that nature? Seeing none, agenda item 8 is executive session. Don't believe there's anything we need to go into executive session for. Let's go on to agenda item 9, which is public comments on items not on the agenda. No action can be taken. We have a 5-minute limit per speaker. So for those of you who would like to make a public comment, we need your name, address. If you're associated with cable TV or any particular program, that's always good to know, and you have a 5-minute limit. Please, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mark Welsh, I live at 5611 Howard Street in Omaha. I put together Democracy Now!, I should say. I used to put together Democracy Now! Because of your action today. I'm assuming that our show is over after 4:30 today. I'm assuming the policies take effect now so that there are no more daily series, so there is no more Democracy Now! In Omaha. I'm disappointed. I would like to point out some information that I was researching the last few days, looking for studios in Omaha, Nebraska. I called all of the TV stations and said, hey, could producers come to your studio and produce a show for public access TV? 3 out of 4 said no. I'm waiting to hear back from the 4th station. I'm assuming they're going to say no also, because it would be kind of interesting for a TV station to allow a show to be produced for another TV station. Plus, one of them just said, hey, we're booked. We don't have time for any more shows to be produced. Jim Adams was the only exception. His would cost a producer somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 per show to produce at his studio. I asked all of these people, the 4 major stations and Jim Adams, do you know of any small studios or any size studios where producers could go in Omaha to produce their show and to create their show. None of them know of a place where producers can go produce their shows. So I think, and Charles, I appreciate your comment that this is going to have to be revisited. I just have a strong feeling for months that you are not going to be able to fill 90% of the time with outside produced shows. As you know, you can only produce about 10% of your shows in your studio based on 28 hours of operations per week. So I look forward to talking to you again in hopefully in 3 months or so when you don't have very many more shows on the air and you're saying, you know, we'd like more viewers. Let's see if we can get Democracy Now! Back on the air and maybe you can show up for an hour. Thank you.
I have a question for Mark. What were the general responses you received from the local television stations about producing programming?
They all said, the three that I got an answer from said, no, we cannot do that.
Wow.
One of them went into great detail and said, we have our studio full from, and I can't quote the exact hours, but you know, from 5 o'clock until 10, and then from 11 till 4:30, you know, they went on. So there were these tiny little breaks in their schedule where the studio is not busy, but they said, you know, we're not interested in having somebody come in and change our set around. You know, our set is set in one way for us, and we're not interested in somebody coming in. Certainly not going to have anybody else touch our equipment. Imagine. So,
Have you contacted any of the independent production facilities?
I have been in contact with them over the several months that this has been brought to my attention, and you know, some of them do have a little extra capacity, but not much, or they're just not interested in doing more. So there will be perhaps some more shows being made at these other locations, but not 90% of the time it's available.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Anyone else like to make a public comment? Again, these are items that wasn't already on the agenda. You need your name, your address, please, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Casey Rice. My address is 12928D Plaza. I'm newly associated with KTAO, and I'm working on 2 new shows, and I'm basically here to cast my vote with my words. This channel gives an opportunity to many people who have a strong desire to be a positive participant in our community. In attendance to the multiple meetings held to introduce new people to the new studio and to each other, I have seen and felt much excitement and eagerness to further the agenda to be a positive influence. I understand that there have been some negative aspects in regards to the past state of the channel. However, I am positive that these are just hiccups, and that as we focus on the positivity or the possibilities and solutions, we will be able to create a wonderful meeting to enrich both individuals and the community alike. I am very grateful to have been introduced to the opportunity this channel provides to me and many others in the Metro. And speaking for many others that I have associated with, I ask for as much support as possible to be given during this transitional process as well as in the future. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms.
Casey,
Rice.
what's the program again that you produced?
My main one is actually called Words. I'm going to be interviewing local writers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Got it. I remember it now.
And then I'm also working on another one, not as the main person, but to feature artists in the area.
Good. Thanks a lot. Who else would like to make a public comment on items not already on the agenda today? Seeing none, agenda item 10 is setting of the next meeting date, and the proposed date is January 13th, 2014. We now want to meet at 4725 Buck, right?
I move that that happens, that the January meeting be held at the studio, 4725 Is that correct? F-speed?
Right. I think we're going to do this anyway, but we'd like a second.
I'll second it. Mary will second it, I'll second it.
Moved by Mr. Wyman, seconded by Ms. Williams, that the January meeting date, which is January 13th, be held at 4725F.
It'll be just like this one, it'll be a public forum.
Exactly, it's the same sort of meeting.
Everyone's
just a
invited,
different-
bring your friends.
Just a different setting, same thing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll, happy holidays, and we'll see you. Yes, Charlie? Yes.
Just a round of thanks to the ever-popular Tammy Borowski. And do we have a designated successor? As an interim?
Until the name of permanent.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy.
I think we haven't scared her off. We'll see. Thank you. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.